Yo, we are back. Of course, you know what it is already. The Sports Back Bros podcast, episode number 9. The numbers keep rising every single day because we're on the air, or at least here recorded before we start live streaming 4 days a week. Hopefully through Monday through Thursdays, those 4 days you'll get with us to get the conversation of sports going. As you may know by now, I'm Trav, he's Bias, and we're getting into the conversation of sports with you. We're trying to talk about the sports that you're interested in. We already know what it's all about. For the next 45 minutes, maybe so, you're going to get a chance to talk about, well, what had happened yesterday. This is Tuesday, the day after the carnage, the day after the coronation of the first championship in franchise history. The Denver Nuggets are NBA champs for the first time. Bias, speak to the people.
Well, we talked about it yesterday. What's up, YouTube? What's up, Spotify?
Yes.
The Nuggets closed it out. They won their first championship. It was kind of an ugly game. Both teams under 500, not a lot of scoring. 500. Both teams under 100, not a lot of scoring. I wouldn't say they set basketball back some years, but, it wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing game to watch. But, defense can sometimes be entertaining. But down the stretch, playoff Jimmy tried to make an appearance, but it wasn't enough. So congratulations to the Nuggets and also the Heat. They had a great run. They just lost to a better team.
Yep, they were the better team from the very beginning. And in fact, every team that the Heat had played against as a number 8 seed on paper was supposed to be the better team, but the Heat got to this point just a couple of games away from winning an NBA championship. They fell short against the best team going into the playoffs when it came down to this NBA championship being at stake. Also, for those of you who are watching right now, you must be watching YouTube. You could watch us. If you're going to do that, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up. That helps even more than subscribing because it helps get the message of the sports conversation out to others who enjoy the sports talk, as we're going to bring it to you for 4 days a week. Also, we're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're on Spotify, as Bias has said. You can click on that. You can listen to us. If you don't want to hear us, if you don't want to watch us, you can just listen to that for the next however long this lasts. Every time that we've had it, we have other episodes on it. The previous 7 episodes are on there as well. So, in addition to what the Denver Nuggets had done, at the end of this show, for those who are watching on YouTube, well, I have a tribute that I made for the MVP of the NBA last year, which was Jokic, who should have been the MVP this year of the regular season, the Western Conference Championships or finals, and the finals themselves in the championship game. Jokic, you'll get a chance to see that. It's a little backdated, but you'll appreciate it the same way. But back to our conversation. Well, you know what? They did take it back a little bit. Defensively, it reminded me of Pat Riley's Knicks. Surprise, surprise. Pat Riley's down in Miami. The defense was the headline, but Denver showed they could bang it out as well. They're not just playing West Coast finesse. And we saw a real good battle. The refs, as you mentioned when we were speaking off the air, swallowed the whistle in this game when they needed to. And when they didn't, well, I guess they needed to because it made it not aesthetically pleasing, but you got to see the dogs we've been talking about throughout this entire playoffs.
Right. I had a little situation going on at the house during the game last night. And so I was watching the game, but I had the volume off.
Yeah.
And my son and I were like, that looked like a foul, but then they're going down court the other way. A couple of plays later, it's like, that looked like a foul, but they're going down court the other way. We're like, what the heck? So I even tweeted, do the referees have whistles? But it made for a dramatic ending. The Nuggets won by 5, but it was closer than that.
Oh, absolutely. Vegas had it wrong. We've had it wrong in terms of the number of points that might have been scored in this game because we thought it was going to be a blowout. I think a lot of
double figures.
We've been off a bit in the playoffs, but still, we got great games. And even though this wasn't aesthetically pleasing, you got to see the heart of both teams in this game. And with all things equal, the better team won. I mean, sometimes having a lot of heart can overcome the talent barrier. But when you have a talented team that matches your intensity and your heart, you get the result we got yesterday. Still just 5 points for the victory, but 1 point would have been good enough to get Denver their first championship as an NBA franchise. So we have a clip here, a few clips of highlights, and Bias and I will go through those highlights as we play them, and you can play along as well. Some of the best play in the game, obviously highlights. This is about 5 minutes worth. and we'll talk about it as we go through it.
I love everything.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy was having an historically bad Game 5 last night. He decided to step up.
Not the two previous ones.
I think, of course, he has to step up the team having shot.
Shoots and scores.
He was making the play. He was gritty out there.
He made 13 straight points.
8 straight points.
Yeah.
2.5 to go. Murray pulls back. Finds Jokic. Martin on him. Jokic drives down a lane. Layup.
Too small. Too small.
Yeah, there's your MVP.
They should have doubled him there. You can't just let him go one-on-one with Caleb Martin.
But when you see him play, you see the floaters that he has. It's like he does not miss. I mean, he was like 9 for 12.
Approaching 2 minutes remaining. Butler steps back.
This one right here. Oh, no, that's not the one he hit right there was crazy.
Butler the drive, the layup, and a foul. Floor at 37. And Butler, so quiet.
Murray, to me, I'm jumping Jamal Murray. I'm blitzing him, not allowing him to make a comfortable pass to Joker.
If you do, you have to rotate early to Jokic and make the ball go to Bruce Brown, Gordon, or Caldwell Pope. The shots can't come from Murray and Jokic.
Butler with the last 13 points for the Heat. Bruce Brown. Lowry's on Jokic, directing the traffic. Jokic backs in Lowry all over him.
Yeah, I don't think that was a foul. I mean, all of the stuff they let go before that looked like a jump ball to me.
Murray falling
all
away.
the physical play.
Rebound, Brown.
That was huge, man.
Absolutely huge, man.
Can't let Brown sneak in for that.
They were going at it. They were going at it.
You know, just when they thought they had to stop, they come back and they're down a point.
Take their heart back. Yep.
Spruce a three. Won't go.
Spruce was just awful. Clean look. I mean,
yeah.
the Nuggets had clean looks like almost all night, and they were just absolutely horrendous.
Excellent play by Butler.
Yeah, Jimmy was in a spot where he had to pass it, but he should have made a move where he's taking the shot, or the only person I would have passed it to is Bam cutting to the hoop. I would not have passed it to anybody else.
Well, Bam had an excellent first half. The second half, he didn't do as well. His presence was good because he played defense.
I'm saying if he's cutting to the hoop, you know it's a layup or he's going to get fouled. I wouldn't trust anyone else.
It wasn't Jokic in early foul trouble in the beginning of the game, and he didn't get fouled anymore.
Yeah.
5 seconds remaining.
This is where you want to look to for one if you can, if you get a good one.
Lowry picked up by Gordon. Murray is on Butler. Jimmy Butler on the drive, gets inside, stops. Stolen by
That's the one right there.
They called timeout.
Yeah, he was trapped. He could have called the timeout.
And they had one timeout. He should have called it.
They're 9 of 19 from the
come on,
free
man.
throw
Well, at
line
least miss
tonight.
one of these, man. But he got that ice water right there. All net.
Both teams still with 2 timeouts.
I just wonder how Lakers Nation feels about watching KCP celebrate with the Nuggets.
It happens all the time with these teams that get rid of a player and then they're in another team.
To give.
Well,
Miami
raising
still
the
has 1
trophy.
timeout left. Denver has 2. Inside to Butler. Gordon guards him. Duncan Robinson looking for it. Caldwell Pope pokes it away. Butler hoists up a 3. Off the mark. Brown the rebound. They've got a foul, and they do.
Yeah, I don't agree with that shot either.
Well, people just racing shots at the end.
Yeah, but they still had time. He could have tried to make a move instead of you can't contest a shot better than that.
Gets the second one to bounce in. 2 clutch free throws from Brown. Timeout, Miami.
He could have called for another screen. A lot of things he could have done there instead of just turning and jacking.
Yeah, you know, I guess he felt that you get that mindset, you the leader of that team. Still, you have to do everything because guess what? No one else is doing anything other than Bam.
They're not going to foul.
That is how it ended.
The Heat will let it play out. It's over. At last, the long wait is over. After 47
So we talked
years,
about it a lot,
the
where
Nuggets can finally
the
call
others for the
themselves
Nuggets
NBA
consistently
champions.
outperformed the others for the Heat.
Yes.
Bruce Brown comes up with a huge play. Strus has a three in the corner, and he missed it.
Yeah, I mean the
That was
three-point
pretty
shooting,
much the difference.
the three-pointers for both teams was just absolutely horrendous yesterday. You know, they were shooting at 17%. I
They
mean,
did set a 3-point shooting back a little bit.
oh yeah, they said 3-point shooting back. I mean, Steph Curry was blushing like, what the heck is going on here? This is not even my team. I'm embarrassed for them, you know. But hey, ultimately it came down to the MVP of the game, the MVP of the series, the MVP of the finals. Jokic just making these high percentage shots, even when they were in mid range, he was still making those high percentage shots. I mean, he became an unstoppable force out there. 28 points on the day. It goes beyond the points with him. I mean, even when he doesn't get all the assists, his presence just makes people, you know, when you try to double team him, leave someone else open. Last night, not as much so because they weren't hitting 3-pointers. So, you know, it didn't matter as much. No one was really on top of it. And, you know, the unsung hero, well, Tyler Hero wasn't there. So they just kind of left him out because I guess, you know what? They've proven they can win without him on the road, at home, you know, and they had that chemistry throughout the entire playoffs. He's been gone for nearly 2 months. They're probably better off yesterday without him, and it proved it.
Who knows? We'll never know for sure, right?
No, that's for true.
I mean, he could have got a few minutes in the first quarter. I mean, first half. At some point in the first half, get him out there. Let's see what he can do. If he looks, you know, out of sync and very uncomfortable, in pain, all right, let's bring him out. But it's do or die. Get him out there to see where he is. I mean, if he hits 2 threes, that gives you a little bit. If he hits 1 3, that would have given them a little bit.
That's what we were thinking yesterday, that he would at least get a chance out there. You know, even if it's not going to be 30 minutes, 20 minutes, not even 15 minutes, get out there for 12 minutes because you can see what he's going to do or how he's playing. In the first 5 minutes, you'll know what you have for somewhat. But they did, apparently there was something behind the scenes that didn't allow them to put him in. Maybe that pain was a little bit too much to overcome. Maybe the aspirin or even a shot didn't do enough to where he felt comfortable enough making the shots. And as you mentioned yesterday as well, you know what? Those guys, especially the way they were playing yesterday as physical, they were going to hand check this guy. They were going to go after the ball, and he was going to feel it at some point. And these refs swallowing the whistle as they did, well, that's probably more likely than not that might have been the case. He probably would have gotten battered a little bit and rendered him completely ineffective.
He'd have been on the injured reserve on the last game of the season, right?
Yeah. And as I already mentioned, I have a tribute for the Joker, for the MVP of the NBA Finals, the new champions, the Denver Nuggets, Jokic. I have a video that I had made last year when he won the MVP, which was his second straight MVP. This year, I guess the controversy kept him from getting a third, even though he played like it throughout the entire playoffs and especially in the games that mattered in the championship game. I have a video that I will attach to the end of this show that you can watch as a tribute to Jokic. And of course, Jokic being Jokic. The job is done. That's what he says after the game. There is no extreme exuberance. There was a little bit, him trying to throw Jamal Murray in the pool and all that stuff. But he wants to go home. He doesn't even want to go to the parade.
Like, when's the parade? He's like, oh, man, Thursday. Come on, man.
You know,
he figures his job is done. It's time to go home. But, you know, as the finals MVP, you have certain obligations.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go for it and be that man, you gotta live up to it. So, I mean, Thursday, Friday, come on, a few days, he'll be all right.
He's new to superstardom. I mean, he's a super duper star now. And you know what? I looked at something yesterday that said that if he won a championship, it would put him ahead of Dirk Nowitzki as the best European player ever. Is that so right now? I think there's an argument now because he has the MVPs.
I mean, longevity counts for something.
Exactly, it does.
But if you're talking about Dirk's peak and Jokic's peak, I got to give it to Jokic.
Because Jokic hasn't hit his peak yet, though. I don't believe.
I mean,
whoa.
But up till now, he led the entire playoffs.
Yeah.
Everybody that played a game in this playoff season, he led them in points, rebounds, and assists. That's never been done before.
Nope. And there will be a faction of people out there who still will not give him credit for being the absolute great player that he is. And right now, I don't think there's even an argument.
You just quote Roger Mayweather.
Bob,
let me quote Roger Mayweather. Most people don't know shit about basketball.
Yeah, exactly. The same acronym, just the basketball involved this time. And that's true, man. And it's unbelievable. But these people I see in some of these groups where they get hide behind a keyboard, they wouldn't do this at a round table unless they had some type of threat going on. They're going to disrespect him for whatever reason they decide to disrespect him for. He's clumsy. He doesn't play defense. They say all of these things, and these are still the results we're getting in terms of him going to a championship game, being the leader of that championship game, making all of these stats and figures that hadn't been done before about all your favorite all-stars and greats of all time. He's doing it. He's setting a precedence for the future players, maybe at his position or even Euros, other European players that come in, regular players, any player that comes into the NBA. Is not. He's setting the table. He's setting the standard very high anyways.
Yes,
it's hard for anybody to get there. Unbelievable.
Agreed, very high. I mentioned the other day, he looks like I get the impression that other players think I can guard him because he's not moving quickly, he's not shaking his man, he's not breaking ankles. And yes, you can guard him, but can you stop him?
Nope.
Because he's going to score with you guarding him the best you can. You can be all over him, and he's still going to make his shot. That's what is really incredible about Jokic's game. His touch is so soft. His shooting touch, he gets a lot of shots to bounce around the rim a couple times, and they fall in. And, his jumper is wet. He splashes a lot of his jumpers. But his shots in the lane where he just kind of tosses it up, some of them go in on net, some of them bounce around and go in. He just has a very soft shooting touch.
And when you decide to double team him and he doesn't necessarily want to use that shooting touch, his eye for the assist, his eye of spacing, his IQ, all of those things are on display. And then now you're in another problem because he's going to pass to the person if you're double teaming him, he's going to pass to the open man. And a lot of times they're going to hit the splash or they're going to cut through the back door and get a basket anyway. I mean, it's very hard to defend this guy. Now, as far as a core goes, is Jamal Murray, does Aaron Gordon stay? I mean, they have the team right now. And after championship games, people try to pick at your championship team, taking even the utility guys away because that's the depth that's provided for these teams. And it makes your team a different team the following year. Is this the kind of team that you could look at this core and say that this is going to be a continuous thing when it comes down to championship style basketball, not just get into the playoffs, not almost, kind of like Milwaukee. They have the team, but they're not getting there anymore. They're getting beat in the second round now. But does this different team, are they going to be one of these perpetually great teams that's a number one seed, you're expected to win, and now they're going to start winning?
Well, that remains to be seen, but they definitely have the talent to be a factor in the next 5 to 7 years. Their core is very young, and barring injury, who's going to stop them?
No.
As long as they keep Murray, Jokic, Porter Jr., that's a good starting point.
See, Jokic is going to get better. That's the scary part about this. I mean, he's still a young guy. He's under 30, obviously, and he's still just, getting used to the NBA game. Years ago when European players came into the league, they had to get used to the physical nature of the NBA. But the NBA's changed so many rules because they want the offense, the flash. So the defense isn't what it used to be. What we saw yesterday was an anomaly in terms of defense. But by and large, it's an offensive league now. And now European or international basketball seems to be more physical than the NBA. I mean, I remember just during the Olympics when the players were complaining about the physical nature of international basketball before they got their sea legs and won. But he's only going to get better. And there are going to be players who want to play with him. And it's going to make it that much more difficult. The Warriors had their moment. The Lakers are just in disarray as long as LeBron is there trying to pick and choose who he wants to play with him. I think this is the one constant we do have. This transition in Golden State. Phoenix is trying to transition as well with a coach as well. This is the only constant on a high level that we have. We don't know what these Memphis Grizzlies are going to do because I was expecting them to take a step forward. They have disarray in their organization with their star player.
Right. I would look to Sacramento. They're a young team.
Sacramento. How can I forget
Guys, see if they take another step up next year. They pushed Golden State to Game 7,
Yeah.
where the championship DNA showed up. But you that's a lot of experience for that young team, and I think they'll be much better off for it next year. So
Yeah,
they'll be.
it's that experience, of course, but the experience of being a champion. Some teams fall off after being champions because they kind of hear a lot of the stuff. I don't think this is going to happen in this case because Jokic is one of those. He's almost like a reluctant superstar. You know what I mean? Now, when he goes back home, he's probably going to get even more love than he got over here from the Denver fans. I mean, they were watching the game in his home country last night in Serbia, and they want him to win. He's representing them, all of them. And they wanted him to win just as much as Denver wanted him to win, or people who follow Denver. So he's going to be a superstar out there. Does he get exhausted with all the attention out there if he wasn't getting it already? Certainly now. He's a super duper star. No longer just superstar Jokic, probably MVP this year, but definitely MVP last year. This guy's going to be in the running for some time coming, and the NBA is going to be better for it because of that.
Yeah, we mentioned before where his game isn't predicated on athleticism or physical attributes. So he's not always exerting the most energy out there. So I think he'll be fine.
Anybody can get injured. We know that. We don't wish injuries on anybody, regardless of how they are on or off the court. And, you just hope that a guy that size, that people don't get dirty and try to do things to him, and you just hope that he has a nice, clean career. You can't guarantee it. He might hurt himself on his own. But if he can
ask Marcus Morris what happens.
Ask who?
Ask Marquise Morris what happens.
Yeah. As you might see in the video, if you watch the end of the show, when I do have that Jokic video, they wanted all of the smoke. His brother.
Definitely don't turn your back after taking the cheap shot like you didn't do nothing.
Yeah, and think that Jokic is just some guy that's just going to let you get away with it. He showed right away. I'm not putting up with that. So he's a nice guy, but don't get under his skin because, well, you'll have back problems if you did.
When's his birthday? Is he a Gemini?
Who, Jokic?
Yeah.
I don't know, but he probably does have that Gemini personality, man. One minute he's cool, next minute he's not.
Yeah, there's two.
If that's what it takes to be the player that he is and help this team or help the NBA as a whole, I mean, the NBA is looking bright when you have all of these young stars and you have it's as truly an international game as it's always been. And to have another international face as the face of the NBA right now as it stands, I mean, because Luka's not too far behind. He has to do his winning too. So you have all of these things going on, especially in the West. I mean, it's going to be interesting.
Number one draft pick, he's going to be from Europe.
Another one, exactly. Another one. I mean, we'll get into some draft talk, a little bit of draft talk at least, as the draft is coming up, I believe on the 22nd of June. So, well, I guess last words on Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat. The cliche of they don't have to keep their heads down because they play their best game. No, this is one of those times where their best game, there's no arguing about what was left on the basketball court. They left everything on the basketball court last night. The better team who matched them in intensity and heart just happened to win. Someone has to win. There aren't any ties in basketball. And the Miami Heat have nothing, or their fans, and I think their fans understand that as well, have nothing to be upset about because they went out on their shield when a lot of teams just quit when things are getting, there was so many momentum changes. There was a 15-point swing. Denver's down by 10, wins by 5. And Miami was there for every step of the way, trying to make their case.
Yeah, they fought all the way to the end, but I think they'll be frustrated knowing that Bruce Brown rebound and putback, that was a defensive breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
They got the stop, but then they didn't complete the stop. They got Murray to miss, and they didn't box out. They didn't clean up the boards, and then they ended up being down one. And from that moment on, it seemed like everything went the Nuggets' way.
Yeah.
Or if they get that rebound, they come down looking to go up 3, changes the complexion of the game entirely.
That's that home court advantage you have when the crowd can get on your side when you need them most. Once that momentum changes and the crowd gets into it, man, I mean, as a human being, in human nature, only a very few have the ability to just wade through the storm. Somebody like a Michael Jordan can just, regardless of what's going on around him, he's going to do what he does, and it's going to matter when he does it. And this is just one of those things. Even with Jimmy trying to do old Jimmy, trying to put people on his back, we saw the differences of a guy like Jordan and a guy like Jimmy. That's no insult to Jimmy. It's just that Jimmy had a team around him that wasn't going to match his intensity. We saw a lot of mistakes that you've already mentioned. We saw a lot of missed shots, which are mistakes when you have that wide open an opportunity. I mean, there was times when I heard they were saying how great the Miami defense was playing. I'm looking on the perimeter. These were clean shots that Denver were missing. These were clean shots. It wasn't like these were contested shots. They were clean shots, so the defense wasn't that good on the perimeter, but you saw the physical nature of the way both teams played as they played.
Yeah, it could be Denver players had a little bit of nerves too. They're trying to close it out. It's a tight game, and you really want to win. Maybe they just put a little bit more pressure on themselves than they normally would, and maybe they got a little tight. What happens?
Well, the way it started off, I mean, they were down 5-0, so they came out a little bit tight, and then they kind of
turning the ball over.
Turning it over. And they had a whole lot of turnovers, by the way. I mean, come on. They just turned the ball over like they just didn't want it, and it looked just like nerves, trying to impress the home crowd, trying to do a little bit too much. But when they settled into the game, I don't really think they even settled into the game completely throughout the entire game. They just were the better team, and that's eventually what ended up happening.
It was like a grinded out type of game.
What kind of game?
Grinded out.
Yeah, it was. It was a grinded out, and they showed they can play the grinded out game. That's not what you too much expect from West Coast teams. You almost always, even in football, think about finesse when it comes to a West Coast team. This Denver team, when it came down to having to grind it out, they beat Miami at their own game. Grinding it out and being the alpha was what got Miami this far, and they've hit the wall in Denver. Now we have the new champions for the first time in franchise history. Once again, he's biased. I'm Trav. This is the Sports Bag Bros podcast, episode number 9. Monday through Thursday is what we're trying to bring it to you 4 days a week. And we hope that you can join us when we go live eventually, when we get the subscribers or get the listeners for you to go live with us, having the conversations about sports. We're on YouTube right now. So if you're here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. In addition, hit the like button, because that also helps the algorithm even more so than subscriptions. We like subscriptions as well. We're also on Instagram. We're also on Twitter. So bias tweets there like pretty often when things are going down, like last night when refs swallow their whistles. And Facebook, we have a group there. So if you want to join us through Facebook, you can do that as well. So make sure you hang around to the end of this show, because when the end happens, we're going to have a tribute to Jokic, the Joker, the Denver Nuggets MVP of the finals. We're going to have a tribute to him. That was last year, but it should have been apropos for this year as well, since he was robbed of a championship. I don't know why. He was robbed of a
How many times you going to say that, man? How many times?
He was robbed of a championship?
Yeah, that's like 3 times tonight already.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because that's what happened. He deserved that MVP. He should have been a 3-time MVP going into this series, even though you would always keep your MVP for the championship over a regular season MVP. Just wanted people to know that. And so we could put a lid on this NBA basketball season. We may get into some of the ongoing things in the NBA. The draft is coming up. You know, they're going to be free agency in July. So there's going to be more to that. But this puts a lid on the NBA's 2022 to 2023 season. And we take a little bit of a peek at the NFL next month when training camps open up, and then college football with their media days opening up. But right now in mini camps, some of these NFL teams have players who don't want to show up, don't want to participate in mandatory mini camps. Stephon Diggs is one of them. What's going on there?
Well, that's a strange one, because he actually showed up and then left. So why go if you're going to leave? Or does something set him off where he's like, screw this, I'm out? Because he was there, and then when it's time to practice, they couldn't find him. And his coach says he's concerned.
Yeah.
Josh Allen, he's being a pro, saying that's his guy. He supports him. He alluded to maybe something off the field, nothing specific. But, you have to wait and see. When's the next time he's going to show up?
Yeah, well, his representative said he was going to be there throughout the entire week, and he leaves on the first day after showing up, getting his physical and whatnot. Gamesmanship or just flat out lying. I don't know. And like you said, what's the deal with this? Because there's no reason for him to sit out. This isn't a contract issue. He's under contract until 2027. He has about $70 million in guarantees in that contract. What more can you ask for? Hopefully it's nothing off the field.
It might be that Madden curse taking effect already. Who knows?
You know what? It's contagious. Not only is it for Josh Allen, it may be for Stephon Diggs as well. Josh Allen said, that is his guy.
It's going to directly affect Josh Allen. So
absolutely, it can directly affect him. And in addition to that, they're still looking. There's an opportunity to get a Dalvin Cook to come in there. Does he want to come into a team that looks like it has disarray from the outside? Even though Dalvin Cook himself said that he's not going to rush his decision to latch on with another team right now. But yeah, this seems to be an issue with Stephon Diggs. You would love to have that wide receiver and another good running back there, if not kind of great running back. But Josh Allen, that Madden cover's coming for you, man. And it seems subliminal, but it's still you.
Yeah, unfortunately, we just got to wait and see where it is with Stephon Diggs. Maybe he has a press conference. Maybe he sends out a press release. Maybe he tweets something. Who knows? We'll see. But it's just very strange. Why? I don't get why you go and then leave.
Knowing that people are going to talk about it. All eyes are on you, and you do something like this, it's going to get attention, and you may come back smiling as if nothing happened. People are going to
purposely. You might have done it purposely.
Yeah, I'm serious. But people are going to question him regardless. Even when he comes back, they're going to want to know why. Now, is he going to give a real reason or just say something just to say something? Why start this like this before you even get to training camp next month? These are mandatory camps. So there's going to be a fine for missing that mandatory camp as well. It doesn't mean much to him, the fine, because of the money he's making, but it's still something. Does it cause some animosity between he and the organization because they're going to do what they're contractually bound to do, fine him for not showing up to a mandatory camp?
Well, being that it was the first mandatory day,
yeah,
he leaves, they're not getting off on the right foot. So their camp is starting off the negative way. So Bills, they already have work to do.
And Coach McDermott, he didn't even try to hide it. He's concerned. It is a concern. This is your top wide receiver. Your quarterback needs him. He had over 1,400 yards last season, 17 games. They're on the cusp of a possible Super Bowl. Every year, as long as they have Josh Allen, and certainly as long as they have Stephon Diggs, and it may be a running back away from having an even more explosive offense, they're on the cusp of it. Aside from the Madden curse, this is a real problem for that team. And not to mention the AFC East, at least on paper, has gotten better. So there aren't any real guineas anymore in the AFC East.
Yeah, I can imagine, Bill's coaching staff was excited, and maybe we go out and we get Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
We add to our offense, make us more potent. And first day of camp, where's Stephon? He was there. I just saw him a little while ago.
I just saw him really.
What the hell? Man, somebody just threw a monkey wrench in that whole plan.
I just can't see how
someone's Stephon.
But how could a player say they're a team player, then you pull something like this? This is not even in a joking way. Why would you do something like this? Where your team stands. That it's going to be a tougher division this year. You still know you're the elite team in the division, one of the elite teams in all of football, and you almost every year just a notch away from a Super Bowl appearance at least, and you come in like this, man. You're starting off on a sour note. And I don't know if it can only get worse. I'm not going to go that far, but it's a pain in the butt, man. There are going to be some people in that locker room looking cross-eyed because this has nothing to do with money. This is some personal nonsense. It got to be. That's the only conclusion I can come to.
I don't know what player or players run that locker room, but I would imagine when he comes back, they're going to be like, hey, what the hell was that? What's that about? You got some explaining to do, pal.
Yeah. See, luckily I had the benefit of being in locker rooms in the past, of NFL locker rooms, and what we see on the outside, you always wonder about team chemistry. And then when you go in the locker room, you get a vibe. And you can tell when something's wrong, even if the management or people, the executives that are in the locker room are trying to prevent you from understanding it. You can feel the vibe. And, I remember, I can tell you straight up, when Jimmy Smith had his drug issues here in Jacksonville, and I went into the locker room, and it was a different vibe when he came back from that suspension. I mean, bro, it was not the same. And it wasn't the same the way the media had spoken to him, and it wasn't the same the way he communicated with the media. But as players in it, they're not going to say anything to the media. But if you were there enough, you kind of realize that, things ain't quite the same. People are looking at him kind of sort of cockeyed because they really needed him. Even if it wasn't a great Jaguar team, he was still one of their primary players, and they needed him.
Yeah, so it's going to be real interesting when he comes back.
So sticking with the NFL, and probably one of our last topics is, what about, you had mentioned today about Lamar Jackson going back and forth on Twitter with the followers. What is Lamar up to now that he has his pocket full of money? Do the fans like him? Do they embrace him? Or are they still treating Lamar like not a quarterback these days?
Well, it's not all fans, obviously, but at least Lamar doesn't have a burner account. He's replying himself, but he's doing it in a professional manner. Someone called him a glorified running back, and he said, "You know what? I play a lot of positions. I even play kicker." So he's kind of having fun with it. Another guy alluded to the fact that he sat out the playoffs because he was afraid to get hurt because he wanted to get his bag. Lamar replied, "Well, why did I play the first 12 games if I was afraid to get hurt?" Makes sense. He wouldn't play at all. So, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, Roger Mayweather's quote, it applies to football too.
cut out. Just apply to every sport out there when people start going off bounds. Football in particular, these fans are ridiculous. I mean, I hate to be the one to say, you never played before, so you shouldn't even speak about it. But God, some of these people just say the most ridiculous nonsense, and it's annoying as hell. I don't even have to be a Lamar Jackson fan or even a fan of any particular player to just resent some of these fans that say that, man, you sit down because of the bag. These are competitors on the highest level. Football, a testosterone-filled sport in particular. These guys aren't trying to just sit around and get something for nothing. I mean, this is what they've been doing since they were kids. They're wired to be out there in the field. Now, there may be a little business in there when someone may miss a game, may fake a hamstring injury. We've heard stories like that before. But in his case, I mean, he's correct. He played the first 12 games. So you could get hurt in the first game. We've seen that before too. But he played 12 games, and he played while hurt while in those games.
Yeah, and plus the type of game he plays, he puts himself at risk.
You know what? I'm glad he got his bag because he's been regressing.
It's not like he's a drop back quarterback and he lost 3 of his linemen. He's like, oh, wait a second, I got no protection. I gotta fake an injury so I don't get hurt. No, he's running the RPOs. He's running the ball. He's getting hit
hard. People, teams, coaches have taught their players about this RPO. In the beginning, they didn't know what to do because there's so many rules against hitting quarterbacks. But when the rules became clear and defensive coordinators realized, we're going to punish this guy regardless if he has the ball or not within those very slight parameters, they started doing that. And the quarterbacks are getting more and more injured. In fact, the hatchet just came right down on Colin Kaepernick. I mean, the RPO is the specific reason why it led to his spiral down in his career. And, and let alone the political nonsense, just the physical part of him not being able to do what he used to be able to do. Someone who was planted in as the face of the NFL moving forward didn't happen that way after what he had done in the Super Bowl. I mean, he had Blaine Gabbert in front of him. I mean, this is where it went because of the injuries, not because of the talent. But then the talent eroded because of the injuries. And that's where he ended up. Lamar, I think he's in the same boat because he's trying to be a drop back passer, but his natural inclination is to run the ball when the opportunity, in his opinion, isn't there to pass or make a play with his arm. And he has the ability to do it. But now he's getting hit more and more, and people are completely reckless hitting him. They don't care. They're treating him like a running back.
Yeah, he's so explosive and elusive. If you get a chance to crack him, you better take it because that opportunity may not come but once or twice in a game.
Exactly. And you know what? Look, people could talk about that political correct nonsense of I don't want to hurt a player. Guess what? They want to get out there and put a player out. They may not call it hurting him. They call it putting him out. But he's out because he's hurt, not because he's just out. You know what I mean?
Don't sit out this game and play next week.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Let him do that against another team, just not our team. You know what? I'll be sympathetic to him if he's out after I hit him and next week he can't play. I'll feel bad. But for this game here, you know what? I did my job getting him out of the game. Lamar Jackson, I think he's still excited to watch. There's no question about the excitement level he brings to the game, watching him, even against your team, you know what I mean, against your own team. You know, you like to see him out there. You know, I don't mind seeing him out there as long as he's not effective against my team. But I like to see, you like to see that scramble. It's like watching Barry Sanders. No matter which team he played against, you just wanted to see Barry and see the stats at the end of the day. He's right. One of those kinds of players. And
I think they could help him out if they got him a good number one receiver too.
Well, I wonder how is it so hard to do that? Are there receivers out there that say, you know what, there's an opportunity to go to Baltimore, but I don't think this guy can get the ball to me as consistently as I want it, so they don't go because of that.
That could be.
Yeah, it could be. It's you never know what's going. People say things in the newspaper or they say things publicly, and they say something privately, which really is what they really mean. And you can see by their actions when it's all said and done. This is probably what the deal was. I mean, we just heard about DeAndre Hopkins not wanting to play with Dak Prescott. Well, now looking back on it, are you surprised Dak Prescott might not be able to get the ball to him with the consistency he wants it to make the plays that he wants? And we've seen that before. So
that's a valid point.
So, anything else you want to talk about before we close this out?
What's that?
Anything else you want to get into before we close this out? I know you wanted to talk about the Errol Spence and the Bud Crawford face off. What's going on?
That. It was uneventful, but they kicked it off. That means it's official, and that's probably the biggest fight that could be made in boxing right now. Yep. So that's good to see that it's official. And like I say, it was uneventful. The only thing that was a bit curious to me was Spence wearing glasses. I hadn't seen him wear glasses before, but not a big deal. I mean, unless he thought Bud was afraid to hit a man with glasses or something.
I was about to say the same, man.
But, Bud wasn't going to take no cheap shot.
Nah, Bud ain't going to do that, but Bud's going to do what he needs to do inside that ring, and Spence is going to as well. The thing that stood out to me, not only the size between these two, which is not surprising. One is a former 130-pounder, and Errol Spence, he should have been 160 by now, considering he was in the Olympics at 152, is that his face was kind of round in this picture. I mean, you would think that the fight has been announced, even though it hasn't been official until pretty much going right now. You would think that he would be in the gym and you would start seeing in his face and his makeup that he's kind of getting his body into that fighting condition. But on the other hand, almost always looks like he's hanging around the gym. You can almost always see his cheekbones, even with a beard. You can see that, this guy's in the gym. So when it's time to take the weight off, boom, the weight is gone in the first 2 weeks, and then he's working on his game plan for the entire rest of camp. Errol Spence, probably a little big for the weight class, which we know, maybe a little bit of a weight bully, which we know. And he hasn't gotten to that point yet and we know he works like a dog when he gets there because he's down in that Texas heat. We've seen him put the work in, and he'll get down. He's ready to fight on fight night. But right now, it just doesn't look like it.
Yeah, we're 6 weeks out. We'll see. We'll see.
See, a typical 8-week camp would get these guys right. And, 6 weeks in, that means 2 weeks of training. Should have at least gotten some of that little whatever you had on you, a little bit off. Bud looks like he's ready to get.
We don't know what he looked like. We don't know what he looked like 2 weeks ago. So.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. He probably could have been 200. Like Fernando Vargas used to come in heavy. They had to go to camp and eat an egg a day and to get frustrated with everybody just to get down to 154.
My man used to say he drank NyQuil and did a lot of stuff.
Oh man!
I mean, hopefully that's not the case. Because I want to see Spence at his best.
Oh,
I don't want to hear no excuses. My camp this, my camp that. If you lose, you lose. Better man won.
You already know that if there's an excuse, it's going to go back to the injuries. It's going to go back to the car crash and all the automobile injuries and whatnot. I mean, look, these two dudes are honest fighters, so we're going to get a great fight at best. At worst, we're going to get a great fight. I mean, so I can't see any way this could not be a great fight between these two guys. If someone gets knocked out, doesn't matter which guy, it's going to be a great fight until that, unless it's a early shot that just happens to put a guy out because that is boxing. But the promotion, will have to be considered the better option than the fight if that was the case. Hopefully, you put it together a great promoting the fight, so that way, if there's a first round knockout, we can remember the promotion.
Right. Let the hype begin.
Yeah, let the hype begin. And with that, we could close this show, the 9th episode of Sports Bag Bros podcast. The 9th episode. Time is just running on. It's churning, and now sports are going to get serious because there's no longer any NBA. And after a little bit, there won't be any NHL. And then we're going to have to just talk about a little bit of baseball, which isn't even at the All-Star break yet. And then we're talking the NFL coming up at the end of next month with their football camps, and then college football with their media days, and going into August, having their 0-week games, and then their regular season. There's a lot to talk about. There always will be. But boxing will also keep us busy because there are fights, including Inoue versus Steve Fulton. Let's not forget that one as well. So there's a lot of big boxing. And, of course, one of the biggest fights that's going to be this year, Badou Jack and freaking Canelo. Get out of here. Stop it.
You don't want me to comment on that. You really want my thoughts on that? Okay.
Yeah. I think they need to hear it.
They want to hear my thoughts on Canelo possibly fighting Badou Jack.
Badou Jack, man. Oh, man.
Look,
you know what?
Canelo, I always thought was a bit overrated anyway. He's a known cheater, blaming the meat. I mean, that's a worse excuse than Ja Morant saying he was playing with a toy gun. But anyway, him fighting Jack just tells me he's afraid of Bivol.
Yep.
He's afraid of getting his ass whooped. He already said same terms. That's code for I don't want to get my ass whooped again. And if he's not going to fight Charlo, he's not going to fight Boo Boo Andre. Why Jack? Canelo needs to find his balls. I know he has them. He just lost them.
I had a lot of respect for him at one point, and I still respect him as a fighter. But, man, he's kind of making me look bad defending him for years because I was like, yo, he's fighting the guys with the belts, but he's being selected with these guys. Oh, man, and doing all of this history
you
stuff.
See, I didn't even mention Benavidez.
Yeah, I know. I noticed that. I think he beats Benavidez, but we will never know that if he doesn't give this guy an opportunity. I think this Ryder fight, the last fight he had, kind of showed the slippage. He's no longer in his top prime. And Benavidez, being a volume puncher as he is going to give him more than he wants to deal with, even though I believe his counter punch is going to be the difference in his body shots. But we won't know until they get into the ring.
If he's not going to fight the top fighters, he should just do like a farewell tour.
Farewell tour. Like
in Mexico. Just go to Monterrey, go to Acapulco, go to Mexico City, go to Cancun, wherever.
And these stories about not fighting Mexicans, man, he just kills me with that. You fought Chavez Jr. You're both Mexican, man. And you fought him in Mexico, didn't they?
Oh, Angulo.
Yeah, so Angulo, exactly. And it doesn't make any sense. He's not even trying to because he can get away with it. But anyway, with that said, we'll be back tomorrow with episode number 10 of the Sports Bag Bros podcast. Make sure you join us then. He's biased. I'm Trav. Until tomorrow, see you later. Nikola Jokic has turned the NBA on its ear. He is another European player with designs on NBA domination and championships. His game is sophisticated, much more than his outer appearance may suggest. The scouting report on him pre-draft was he lacks traditional athleticism, meaning he could not run and jump and have the explosiveness like many of today's elite NBA players. In fact, I don't believe it was thought he had the explosiveness or athleticism of non-elite NBA basketball players. However, when one is up against it in the area of athleticism, that same one should also have the ability to activate his basketball IQ. As currently the highest paid Serbian basketball player in history, Jokic is on full display, and haters will hate. Jokic, a certain magic still lingers in the very name. Tenacious, skilled, dominant. The NBA MVP in 2021, the first Denver Nugget to do so, the 6'11" true center from Sombor, Serbia, who was a second-round draft pick of the Denver Nuggets in 2014, the 41st overall pick, may go down as the greatest value pick of all time. The surprise production from such a lower round pick and his overall skill set in practice and games is how he earned the nickname given to him by Mike Miller, the Joker. And he is wild. Jokic would wait a year before coming to the Nuggets due to his continued dominance and obligations to his Adriatic League European team. Jokic is continuing the constant flow of elite basketball talent from overseas, especially Europe, with players like Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis leading the charge. The days of American dominance is no more, but the impressions of that dominance has been felt the world over and has spawned a new age of foreign-born players who have brought their talents to the U.S. to play in the greatest basketball league on the planet. Jokic already ranks among the top 10 on the all-time list of NBA players with the most triple-doubles. Just as impressive, Jokic is one of the more cerebral players in the league, as he seems to have the geometry of the basketball court down to a science. His ability to position for rebounds is outstanding. His vision of anticipating passing lanes and finding the open man is uncanny. He is the entire big package. In a league where he is finding a new nemesis every game, he still manages to come out on top. In this age of super teams and kinda sorta super teams, Jokic is the end-all be-all in Denver. If there isn't a Jokic, there isn't a shot for Denver in any capacity. He is the epitome of a league MVP. Stats are a huge part of that argument, but aside from rebounds, points, and assists, the stats which really matters most are wins and losses, and the wins would be in much shorter supply, and a chance at the postseason would be nothing but a memory without Jokic. As the Joker springs his bag of tricks and surprises onto NBA teams with impunity, this Joker has also played the part of the villain in this NBA movie, as he managed to make enemies along the way. Inadvertently or not, his high skill set and ability may attract some rough play and cheap shots, causing him to embrace his villainous fictional character namesake, the Joker. As Heat forward Marquise Morris found out, the Joker isn't to be toyed with. This Joker is indeed wild. During their 2021 game, Morris committed a deliberate hard foul in which Jokic took exception. In response, Jokic shoved Morris hard enough, sending Morris to the ground in pain. A melee ensued in which the fallout dominated the headlines more than Jokic's stellar play. It was so bad, Miami Heat players were waiting for Jokic outside of the Nuggets locker room after the game. Yes, Jokic wanted all the smoke, and his brothers did as well. But his otherworldly play and ability to lead his team has been uninterrupted by shenanigans of non-basketball events. As it stands right now, Jokic is again in the running for MVP of the NBA, and likely the odds-on favorite to take it home for a second straight year. He is going against the usual cast of dominant players of his era. These players play for far better overall teams. Those players include the defending NBA champion and Finals MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Milwaukee Bucks, Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers, and even the elder statesman, LeBron James, in his 19th season in the NBA. He's a dark horse in the conversation. Not simply playing for stats, Jokic, with home court advantage in the first round on the line, had a tremendous night in his latest outing against the Spurs, dropping 41 points, grabbing 17 boards, dishing out 4 assists, and even managed to get 2 steals. Reminder, this is a 6'11 center. The following night, he had 5 more steals. As a center, steals are not supposed to be a part of his resume in today's NBA. That's for the smaller athletic guys who like to run around and show their athleticism, allegedly. Those kinds of numbers and that kind of hustle will make one believe the Joker is in the clubhouse waiting for his second MVP trophy. Although we can't know for sure, confidence is brewing. An NBA championship will be even better, but patience is a virtue. Didn't Giannis show us that last season? Impossible is nothing, especially when your Joker is wild. Until next time.